So up until the end of 2024, I'd made millions of dollars selling information online with a pretty simple strategy of creating content, DMing people, and selling stuff, right? Different offers at different times. Also selling other people's offers as an affiliate pretty successfully. Towards the end of 2024 and heading into 2025 with the birth of my second son, I really sat down and wanted to aggressively simplify things and at the same time pick up as much leverage as possible, both in that business and the other businesses and my brand and how everything ultimately ties in together. What I want to show you in this video is what was left as a result of that pretty extensive internal and external review. When I say external, I mean looking at the external business, and when I say internal, I mean reflecting on what I really wanted to do, build, how I wanted to spend my time, what I wanted my calendar to look like, who I actually wanted to work with, the types of offers that I actually wanted to deliver. So that, you know, there's two sides to that review, and I think a lot of people miss that. I was actually just having a conversation on Instagram with a gent who owns a cafe near where my parents live. They've gone there for years, and I used to go there when I was younger and lived in the area. And he's trying to work out his next move. And so we were talking through a few things. We're going to catch up in person to have a chat about it. But I said to him, it's, you know, we lose sight of the fact that the business is meant to exist to serve us and not the other way around. And with all the people that I work with online, I see this a lot, and it ultimately causes people to kind of snap, and then they need to really do that deep dive review. And that's why that internal piece is so critical, is because if we don't look internally, if we only look externally at strategies and tactics, we may ultimately build something that just doesn't align with who we are or where we want to go. All right, so I want to share with you in this video what ultimately came out of that review for me, and what I've been really focused on over the last really this year, and where it's all going. And hopefully in sharing that, you will be able to extract something if you're in a position where you want to simplify things, where you want to go from doing things manually to picking up more leverage. I think you'll take a lot of tips out of this that you can ultimately go and take and apply to your own business. Okay, so I'm a graphical person, right? And so for me, I wanted to zoom out beyond just the information business, which is one part of what I do, and I need to be able to really map everything out. I need to be able to see it really, really, really clearly. The perspective of how I look at the business is really critical. Maybe you're the same, maybe not. And so what I did is I zoomed out and I looked at, right, well, what are all the moving parts in terms of what I actually do, right? Like, yeah, we post content and we sell stuff, and I consult, and we've got more leveraged offers, and we've got workshops, and then I do some investing and all this kind of, but if we put it all onto paper, what are all of the moving parts? Okay. And so when I look at my business, there's really three main moving parts, and then they're connected by a fourth component, which you can see in front of you. And so this is what I ultimately mapped out. And it's really, there's a really important element to this, that if you're going through the process of doing a simplification, a review, a rebuild, a restructure, and you're trying to pick up leverage, this is key. You want to find a way that you can connect all of the different things that you do, such that when one of them improves, the other things can improve as well. All right. You don't want them to be competing, right? You don't want it to be like, all right, well, if I put a bit of energy over here, this other thing is going to suffer. You want it to be, all right, well, if I put a bit of energy into this other thing that I'm really interested in and I see a lot of potential in, how can I do that in a way that improves all the other areas of what I do? That's why I call this the flywheel. All right. So I want to walk through this. Then I want to drill into the individual, like, information business component of it. And then we're going to get even more narrow than that. And I want to show you that just like real world examples of the individual components and kind of how I'm running everything now. So this might be a longer video, but I think it'll be helpful, and I think there'll be some value that you can really extract from it. Okay, so the green box here is what I call Caris Digital. So this is my information business. This is almost like a carve out of all the intellectual property that I've developed and sold and built over the years online, helping people with marketing, with funnels, with systems, with organic content, even in the affiliate space back in the day. This is really that kind of carved out into its own silo, right? And then within this structure, what I built is a system that I call the Lifestyle Business Operating System, which allows me to run this really, really lean and really, really simple, okay? And it's driven off the back of ads and content, right? Content being optional if you get the ads in place, at least top of funnel content's optional. And that brings in new people, and I'm gonna go into more detail on this in a second. All of that attention is driven to a 3-part process of email, YouTube, like you're watching right now, and remarketing ads. We've got low ticket offers that are ultimately in place to fund the ads, and then all roads lead towards my academy, which is a 2K offer. Okay. And so this is now set up in a way where there's not a lot of one-to-one or manual touch points. If someone sends a DM with a question, they'll get a reply, but we're not out there hunting people one-to-one. It's more about building a system that runs 24/7, that gets in front of new people, that nurtures people, that converts people into customers, and then most importantly, converts people into clients. Okay. So that's part number 1, is Caris Digital. That's the information business, a leveraged information business. You could consider it a productized information business or productized intellectual property business. You could put different names on it, but fundamentally, that's what it's all about. Okay. Then the second arm is where I've kind of carved out my consulting business, advisory business, partnerships that I have with other people. All right. These used to be kind of lumped in together, but in turning this into more of a machine, I wanted to create that separation. So separate bank accounts, separate merchants, to be able to give me real clarity so that I can sit back and look at this and run it like a machine, and the numbers aren't being either propped up or muddied by other stuff, right? And so this is pretty much the inverse of digital, where digital is more about volume and automation and systems. This is about working with a very, very few people on bigger ticket opportunities for the longer term. Okay. So this is where I do, one-to-one consulting. I just had another gent jump in last night who runs about a $3 million a year painting business, and then he's got a painting coaching business. He's got a SaaS business, and we're going to be doing work around simplifying all of that and installing this operating system that we run down here into the coaching business. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's an example of one-to-one consulting. And then installs and done for you. Done for you is something that I do in very, very limited cases, just because there's typically not the yield there unless it's like your whole business. But helping people do an install of either this operating system or a part of this operating system is something that I do from time to time. Then we've got revenue share and buyouts, and so this is essentially where I might step in either just as myself or with an operating partner, a copywriter, someone who's got a specialized set of skills, and we will work on a performance basis. And then a buyout is where it's kind of like a quasi-equity instrument or deal, right? Where it's like, all right, well, if we're going to help you build this thing, yes, there's a cash flow component, but we want upside. Not all rev shares have that. That's not an every situation type thing, but it is part of this. And then you could bucket events and masterminds under this as well, just because it's not about volume. It's about more like close relationships, longer term projects, etc., etc. So you could also call this a bit of a sandbox where I get to kind of play and do different things with different people. I can make ad hoc offers. If I see someone that I think's got a lot of potential, but maybe they're not in a position to, invest in consulting, we could come up with some other deal. This gives me the room to have fun and really build a portfolio of long-term relationships. Now, this is grown by the brand directly, aka someone might find my brand, go through content, and be like, Jacob, I really like Jacob's message. I like what he stands for. I can see he's got a lot of experience. I'd love to see how I might be able to work with him, and they can just reach out, or they can fill out an application on the website or whatever. But then what also happens, like the gent that jumped in yesterday, he came through this flow down here, right? So he saw an ad. I think he went through a low ticket offer. Then he became an LBA client. And then now he's jumped up to working with me one-to-one. So this gets fueled externally, but it also gets fueled internally by this machine running around the clock. And there's a bigger purpose to this that I'll explain in a second. It's not just about selling stuff, all right? And then the third component is really about, okay, if these two businesses online are running and they're spitting off a profit, what do we do with that profit? Obviously, in part, it gets reinvested down here. It could potentially get reinvested up here running these. It could get reinvested if it made sense in an online capacity for me to put money into, taking an equity position or in someone's online business or similar. But for the most part, outside of reinvestment into my own business, it gets moved into different vehicles, right? Real estate, equities, debt instruments, cryptos, that kind of stuff, and then down the line, this will turn into like active offline businesses as well. That's kind of a future stage in the overall plan. And so they're really like the three, you might consider them kind of operating arms to the business, right? Now here's where they all come together. I've been growing my personal brand since 2018, the Jacob brand, and it's really just been me kind of sharing the journey, and then as a result of that, me sharing what I'm doing, what I'm working on, what I figured out, who I'm helping, how I can help people. Hey, I'm doing this workshop. Hey, I'm starting this mastermind. Hey, I'm offering to help people with this. You monetize off the back end, right? Previously, it had more of a sales tilt because it was the main driver, but moving to this kind of three-part structure, it's allowed me to take that kind of step back, and I don't really need to sell through the brand or the content anymore. It still does. It still leads to opportunities. It still leads to people reaching out. It still leads to people buying this stuff. But I'm taking a longer term look at it now, rather than growing the brand to kind of harvest the brand at that point in time and monetize. All right. And so the play with the brand is really, and this will be applicable for some people and it may not be applicable for others. The play with the brand now is to really document running these three things, right? So sitting here in my office in the operator's chair or the managing the overall system, I get to just share what I'm seeing, what I'm doing, the lessons that I'm learning. And then the really cool part is by sharing that, it in turn grows these different vehicles. Okay, and that's where I say it's a flywheel, in terms of the more cool stuff we do over here with clients, the more I grow it, the more I learn about building, these leverage income systems, and I share it in the personal brand. That's in turn going to grow this more. It's also going to lead to consulting opportunities, maybe some rev share opportunities for people who want to install those same systems. And then obviously it spits off more cash flow, which ends up over here, right? In turn, the more work that I do up here with clients, the more cool, interesting projects that I get exposed to, the more lessons that I learn, the more I've got my finger on the pulse with different things that are happening in the industry. I can in turn share that here. I can share it down here. I can also take those lessons and implement them myself. It also spits off more cash flow, which it could be reinvested down here, it could be reinvested here, or it can be kind of pulled out and invested into different things. And then the more that I do out here in terms of learning different things and growing my overall portfolio, wins, losses, successes, failures, and document that through the brand. It's also lessons that I can share with my clients, right? Well, have you thought about this? This might be a good place to explore things. And these lessons as well can also be out here because this is an investment. It's a system, it's an asset, it's an investment. And so it's all interconnected. And that's exactly the point. One unified model that allows me to do lots of different things, okay, with the personal brand at the core of it. All right. And so that's really where I started when I sat down for this season of reflection and wanting to rebuild. I needed like a master system or a master model that I could really lean on for the long term. Okay. Now, if we look at this piece in particular, this is doing a couple of things. One, it's growing my name and my brand 24/7 because the ads are running, content is being distributed through ads. More and more people, thousands of people every day are seeing my name and it's getting in front of people, and it's free because the machine itself is making money, which can then be reinvested into ads. It's obviously generating customers, it's landing clients, it's landing people who ultimately will level up to here, potentially become partners, etc., etc. And so one way to look at this is that this really, really high leverage, almost semi-automated machine that's running is kind of like the engine for the whole group, in that it's generating cash flow, but it's building awareness about everything else that I'm doing. And then because of the way that it's structured, the more awareness that I build, flows into opportunities here, which flows into opportunities here. And as I just articulated, that then kind of spins back through everything else, through the brand, into here and into here. All right. So this is really the engine that drives everything. Okay. And so because it's the engine, and because I want it to be really run like a machine, it needs to be really lean, and it needs to be really, really simple. And so if we drill into this piece, if we drill into this piece a bit further, we land on this model. Right now, I've spoken about this model in a lot of videos. I come back to it in a lot of videos because it's like the core operating system. I also did a video last week breaking down, if you run this model and your core offer is something really leveraged, like my academy, which is $2,000, it's not a one-to-one offer. What can that look like, and how can you really streamline it and productize it? And I went through this whole kind of brick by brick breakdown. I'll link that below so that you can check it out. But the goal here was stripping out as much complexity as possible. And so I want to show you what was ultimately left, right? And we can use this as our guide. So just as a quick refresher, we've got the top of the funnel, which gets us in front of new people. We've got the middle of the funnel, which nurtures those new people and nurtures the existing audience at any given point in time. And then we've got the bottom of funnel, which is designed to convert people into a core offer, right? That obviously then feeds the program itself, where we do delivery, and then compounding word of mouth turns into more traffic, and it's a closed loop that runs more efficiently each time. Okay, this is a more detailed version of that, and I'll link you to the deep dive video below. Okay, and so in streamlining this, I wanted to remove as many bottlenecks as possible, like human bottlenecks, as many places where there's like a one-to-one touch point, so that it really can be run with activities that have kind of asymmetric upside, right? So it's not me or somebody doing something again and again and again and again and again and again and again. All right, and I've tried to build that into every component, right? And so what's ultimately left is a growth engine that's driven off ads and content, right? So that's got a lot of leverage. I can create one ad and it can be in front of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Same with content. The algorithm could pick it up. People can share it, etc., etc. And then this is a result. This is word of mouth. This is, when a client can turn into two clients. And then all of that traffic, it's not run to DMs. It's not run to a setter. It's not run to a calendar. That traffic is run to either an opt-in page or to a low-ticket offer. So an opt-in page can look something like this. This is for my playbook, which is a really, really detailed asset, and I'll talk about that more in a second, but it's just a really simple opt-in page. This is another example of an opt-in page that has performed really well, and it's 10 emails that landed coaching sales. So these are just helpful resources for people in exchange for getting their email. It's old school, but it's worked for a very, very long time, and the reason that it has is because it's simple and it's evergreen and allows you to build the asset that is your email list. So that's one place that they get sent. Or the other place is that they go to a low ticket offer where they can purchase something for $50, take a $27 upgrade, and then behind this you've got a $100 upsell and a $47 upsell. And then the other thing that I do is I actually connect up the opt-in pages to, let's do this one real quick. Hold up. I connect the opt-in pages to the low ticket offer so that the funnels are ultimately interconnected that way, and we're generating leads and buyers. Okay, I could also go spin this out into different. This one's doing really well at the moment, so I haven't really felt the need to. But if this slows in performance, or I just want to diversify, I could spin out different low ticket offers, and really all I'd be doing is looking at the overall system that I help people implement. And you can do the same thing, and then spin out a low ticket offer for an individual component of that. So in this low ticket offer, is helping people craft their Google Doc offer, which sits here. I could also do it. What's a training on how to pre-sell leads, on how I do my automated emails, on how I write my daily broadcasts, on how I approach, building a really small, close-knit but high-profit YouTube channel, how I run remarketing ads, how to set up a lead gen funnel, how to set up a low-ticket funnel, how to run ads, how to create content, how to get into other people's platforms, how to generate referrals and word of mouth, any of these could be turned into a low-ticket offer is the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, and so these two things ultimately feed our middle of funnel, right? Now, what I call like the invisible middle of funnel is the consumption of these assets that people get access to when they come through the front door. So a great one that you should have is a really detailed playbook on your model or what you help people with in your main offering. Something like you can see this is 22 pages, and then within it, it links off to a whole bunch of other stuff that people can consume and use in their own time, and people absolutely love it. It took me probably a couple of days to pull together initially, and then I've just been refining it ever since. And so because it's in a Google Doc, if I refine it, people get the updated version immediately, right? Which is really, really cool. The 10 emails is another example of that. People going through a low ticket offer, or if they're going through any of the upsells, that's all middle of funnel. It's consumption. It's spending time together, and it's like, do we align in terms of how we view things? So that's the first big piece of middle of funnel that's very, very high leverage, because I create the thing once and I can sell it or give it away thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and people can go and consume it on their own accord. Okay, so they're more of like your static assets. The more active real-time middle of funnel assets that we use are email, which is grown by these two, YouTube, and remarketing. Okay, email is approached in two different ways. One, we have an automated sequence that goes out when someone joins the list, either as a low-ticket customer or via a lead magnet. So they get a 2-week indoctrination, which is really about educating them on who I am, what I've done, how I help people, and what that list is all about, teeing up this main offer here. YouTube is very, very similar. This used to be the JC branded channel, and as part of this kind of restructure of everything, I rebranded it around the Lifestyle Business Operating System so that it's just focused on this. I've since started a new YouTube channel for the JC brand where I can talk about bigger and broader topics, and I can talk about the other elements of the business, and I can talk about investing, and I can talk about being a dad and life and all this other shit that I'm interested in talking about. And so I actually carved out this YouTube channel so that it can sit here in the middle of funnel as a very, very hyper-focused asset, which is, this is where you are right now, and this is why we're talking about this. So it's, it's focused. And then all of the remarketing ads to achieve two different things. One, omnipresence in terms of like, hey, you downloaded this thing, or hey, you bought this thing, or hey, you were opening my emails, or hey, you visited this funnel, or hey, you're on my email list, or hey, you checked out a YouTube video. You might want to think about taking this next step, right? So it's just pure reminder. And then the other thing that it's about is answering questions and handling objections at scale. So FAQs, common objections, the content will typically address those things in the remarketing ads, either through a video, through a written post, through a longer form video. There's lots of different ways that we can do it, but it just stays in front of people. And what you'll notice about all of these is that they are high leverage. It's not about one person chasing people around the internet. It's not about me DMing people. They're all very, very high leverage. I can write an email each day, which is the second part of the email system after the automated series. It goes into a daily broadcast, and it can go to 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, doesn't matter. It's the same input for a lot more upside. Same with the YouTube video. Doesn't matter if 10 people see it or 1,000 people see it. It takes me the same amount of time to create it. And the remarketing ads I can create once, and they can run for weeks, months, years, depending on what it's about and how it's performing. Okay, so that was the goal, was make the middle of funnel where the nurture happens, where people spend the majority of their time, built around systems, processes, strategies, tools that have a lot of leverage baked into them. Okay, and then what we do with all of this energy and attention is that it ultimately points towards one core offering. Okay, and so in my case, it's the Academy, right? And this offer doc breaks down all the details. It's only 5 pages because the system that sits in front of it has done the heavy lifting. People have been through the emails, they've watched some videos, they understand how this model works, they understand what I've achieved, they understand what I'm all about, they either align with that or they don't. And so this doesn't need to do that much, right? It's really just, hey, this is your invitation. I've got this operating system that I've refined while selling over $7 million online. Here's the background story. Here's what it's all about. Here's what it solves. Here's the philosophy behind it. Here's my invitation to you. Here's some other people that have used it. Here's the game plan. This is what we're going to do together. We're going to set up your cash flow engine. We're going to set up your automated buyer flow. We're going to bolt on traffic sources and get the whole thing ticking along. And here's exactly what's included. You get the ability to use this system. You get a personal onboarding from me. And I'll talk about that in a second. We're going to meet every 2 weeks for calls. There's the client hub where you can ask questions anytime. And then we have a weekly office hours session once per week where you can get all your questions answered as well. And then you get all this bonus stuff too, right? And it's a really, really compelling offer, which is obviously critical. It's only $2,000 for 12 months. And for most people, whether they're new or not, for most people, $2,000 is going to be one client and they're in the green. Okay. And then I de-risk that even further with this bonus here, which is literally built around generating people an ROI as quickly as possible. The strategies in here I've used to do anywhere from a couple of grand in an hour up to 160K in 30 days, like different campaigns that I've used. And it's sold previously for $1,000. So it's about building a really, really compelling offer and plugging it into an ecosystem that's nurturing and growing 24/7. When you bring all of those things together, you can build a really efficient engine. Okay. And then the people that ultimately purchase and come through here, we've got a really streamlined onboarding process where it all goes out to them automatically. Everything gets unlocked. There's no manual process on my end until they fill out a really comprehensive 29-question onboarding form, which I then review, run through an AI summary process, and put my own brain to work in terms of customizing a plan for them. So it's really not until they become a client and I'm reviewing their situation that I'm putting individual time into a prospect/customer/client. Everything else is otherwise very, very high leverage. How it's sold, how it's marketed, and how we get in front of new people. And that's the entire point. Okay. So that's where I landed. When I really stripped everything back, these became the core moving parts. An offer document, a YouTube channel, an email list, remarketing ads, and then funnels that get put out in front of new people via ads and via content that ultimately grow that list with either leads or low ticket customers. Okay. And that's really the engine that ultimately drives this overall group. Okay. It grows my brand. It generates people who become like longer term clients, one-to-one partners. And it's very, very high leverage from both a marketing, sales, and delivery perspective. Okay. So if you have a coaching business, if you have a consulting business, if you have a personal brand, if you're an expert, if you're an author, whatever, I think this model could potentially help you. This model could potentially help you. This model could potentially help you. Or if you're wanting to really, really just simplify things, bring it back to a couple of entry points that grow your email list, some high leverage middle of funnel assets, a YouTube channel, those low ticket offers, a deep dive playbook, some automated emails, a daily broadcast, remarketing ads, those kind of things. And then whether you do the no call thing or not, point it all to one core offer where you've streamlined the onboarding and your delivery is really high leverage as well. Okay. And if you do those things, I think it will serve you really well in terms of picking up more leverage in the overall business, streamlining things, and probably allowing you to have a lot more fun. And then you give that some time to wash through and you'll ultimately make a lot more money relative to how much you're working. Okay. Appreciate you hanging out with me in this video. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.